All right. All right. So, and this first part of the tops, we're going to look at using the movie file in, so how to import images and videos. We're going to look at basic shapes, transforming, compositing, and text in tops. All right, so let's start with the with adding an image. So you can do this either by creating a movie file in. So with movie file in, it might be confusing. Movie file in isn't just for movies, so it's also for images or any kind of texture file. You can also just drag and drop an image in here. Yeah, so now we've the sample file here is this banana. So when you drop in a movie file in, you always see this banana at first. You can change that by clicking on this plus here, or by typing a name. If you go in here, you can type or pass the file file path. So here it's always like if you click on the plus, the Explorer is going to be opened, and you're going to see the maps folder of the samples folder of the TouchDesigner folder, and you can obviously go to any kind of folder and just pick any image or video. So I'm just gonna pick this one because it looks cool. So pretty straightforward actually. Like on the movie file in, you don't have options like actually changing, like actually cutting this, or like changing the level or anything. For each of these operations, you have a different operator. So in here, the movie file in is really just for loading in image files, or for example, you can load in a movie file or a video file, so you can instantly see it's like going here. So generally with resolutions, I'm going to just talk about that quickly, because you might want to add an image here that is higher than 1280 by 1280, and if you don't have the Pro license and you drop a higher resolution in here, you're going to see an error here, or like a warning, and that's just saying, like, if you middle mouse click on here, you see this window that we're going to talk about later. But here the error is gonna like appear as well. So you can't use higher resolution than 1280 by 1280 if you don't have the commercial or like any higher license than a free one. All right, so much to that. You have a few options for video here, so you can just make the speed go slower, but as you can see, it doesn't have like a very high frame rate, so it's gonna like lag a bit. And you can, you have a few options here that we don't really need now. All right, so I'm gonna just copy paste this with just Control C and Control V. Click on this plus again and just add another movie here. We're gonna get back to that in a second. So now I'm gonna show you how you could how you can add some basic shapes. So we can add like a circle, and so I'm just as always just double clicking or pressing tab, and then just typing in whatever I want, and then selecting that, dropping that in here. All right, so on the circle you have quite a few options. The first thing I want to do is go to the comment page and change the resolution to, let's say, 1280 by 720. And now the aspect ratio changed, and yeah, by the way, what I just did, if you change like it was like this before, if I change the resolution again, as you can see, there's this black border around it, and if you click on the outer edge anywhere, then you can resize the operator automatically to the resolution. So if I change this to like 2, and click on that, there's like a minimum height there. But yeah, it's definitely useful. Because we're already added, you can also resize them, but generally that's not very recommended, only in very few cases, and we can talk about that when we're there. Alright, so on the circle, if I again change this resolution, I can change the radius here, so like the size, I can rotate it, which makes no sense with this. So if I have it like that, we can rotate it around, and you can also change its position here. So what I'm doing here with the, like how I'm changing these parameters is something that you have to get used to in the beginning. So you can either access this little ladder here, or like this value, like parameter ladder or something it's called. Either by long clicking with your left mouse or by just middle mouse clicking on the parameter. And then you have like this little menu here with these different steps that you can go up. So now I'm clicking in here and I'm holding my mouse down, and I can now go up to this one, and now I'm like changing it by 10. And I can like go down here and I'm changing it very lightly only. Yeah, so that's definitely very useful. I'm using that a lot, so you can easily change the parameters and don't have to type in every time. Okay, so we can obviously just change the color here by just clicking on the fill. Then we have this menu here, hue, saturation, value. So it's like a HSV thing here, and RGB. And you can also just type the values of RGB here, or 8 is this? Yeah, this is RGB here, and you can change the alpha. And generally, this checkerboard there in the background, that is always the alpha amount, or generally representing the alpha channel. So like the transparency, basically. And the background is now at 0 alpha, as you can see. If I turn this up, the background turns black, or any color that I'm specifying here. And yeah, you can also output, like if you export images or videos, alpha is gonna become important. Or if you're like compositing, which we're gonna do in a second. Also, you have things like the border width, so we can make like a bigger border, set that off. You can really just play around with these. Here you have the option to specify the width by pixels, and because this doesn't go very high now, we can just type a higher number in here, and or like 100 pixels. So you can really always change this value there, higher or lower, often lower as well. Then you can drag it here with the slider. And also we have this angles, and you can, if I just turn the fill color down and make a bigger border. Now if I change this arc angles, now you can see, yeah, you only get a fraction of the circle there. It's gonna actually also be done with the alpha in there, with the fill color in there. So you can make these Pac-Man shapes, for example. Let's make this yellow as well. And yeah, you have things like anti-alias and polygon. Ah, yeah, so you can actually make these kind of shapes as well. Yeah, and you can specify the softness and the offset of that. All right, so much to the circle. What you can do is, what we're gonna look at is the rectangle now. So again, I'm just dropping that in here. What we can do now, I want this to be the same resolution as the circle. So what I can do is just change this to 1280 by 720 and all good. But if I have like, if I now want to change the resolution here to, let's say, Full HD, then this isn't changed. So what I can do is just right click on this resolution here, say copy parameter, and just copies both of them. You can also just click on one and copy them. And now I can go here on the comment page of the rectangle and again right click there and say past reference. And now we have this Python expression here. You don't need to understand that now, but now we just always, like if I change this again back to 1280 by 720, this is the same size. So that's very useful if you're working with tops. So on the rectangle we have similar options. We can transform it, rotate it, change the colors, and you know, add a border if we want to. Here, yeah. So that's two basic shapes. I'm also gonna show you the ramp now, because with the ramp you can create like gradients. So I'm gonna drop the ramp in here, and because I still have that in my memory, I can just right click here and say pass reference again, and now it's gonna use that again. There's also another way how you can specify this width and height, which I'm actually gonna explain for a second, because you have your project 1 container here. And if you go on the look page of on the layout page of that, you have a width and height specified here. So it's also already set to 1280 by 720. So all these things are inside of that container, and what's being shown here, we're gonna get to that later. Whatever's being shown here is gonna be in your perform mode at the end. Right now there's nothing. It's okay. So, I mean it's black, not nothing. And yeah, so whatever you have set here, you can kind of call. So I can go to the circle here and now type this little expression me.parent parentheses dot width, and now it grabs the parent. I'm going to do the same with the height. Grabs the parent's width and height. So this is called a child. Like these are all children of this parent. So here we have our project 1 parent, and now if we type this here, this is going to grab the resolution of our parent. So the project 1 is the parent of everything that's in here. All right, so little X course there. Now on the ramp we can yeah, change these. Like this is a bit of a weird system, really. You can also change it to RGB if you want to do that. I actually like working with HSV, German coming through. So we have like 2 sliders at default, when we can change like the color here and then change the saturation and value, and as you can see this changing with it. So this gradient ramp thing that you have here is gonna be here as well then. So let's make this like a nice blue color. So this is the saturation, this is just the brightness or intensity, and then you have an alpha as well. And now I can just drop another one here and add that, and drop another one here and add another color, and I can change this one to another blue again. So now we have this beautiful gradient here. And to delete one of these, you just drag it down. So just take it and drag it, and then we can add some nice green again. All right, so you can also change the type to vertical or to radial or to circular and really play with that, and you can change the position and the phase. So I'm gonna put this to 0 again. So I'm gonna make this the phase actually we can ignore for now. The period you can change, so you have this nice shape here. Yeah, so just so you get hyped a bit, the cool thing is about TouchDesigner that we could, like, for example, every parameter, because it just kind of reminded me of that. If you change this, for example, this could be, you could use a channel of a beat and then map that on here on this parameter. So now you can, like, this parameter, for example, could be reacting to an audio file. Just so we're gonna look at that later, but it's yeah, just so you know. All right, let's now look at transforming. So in the circle and rectangle, you have like a bit of transforming here already, but I would generally, like, transforming just means, you know, you can scale the graphic, or you can position it, rotate it. So you have that here, so I could change the center here. But I would generally recommend using a transform top for this. So I can just right click here and add a transform. And now I have a bit more options here, and yeah, it's just a bit cleaner, I'd say. So now I can, like, rotate that here. I can translate it a bit over there. I can scale it. So if I want to change both parameters, I can just click long on the scale and then change that. If I just want to change one of them, I can do that as well. I have options like the tiling. So if I put this to repeat and scale the whole thing down a bit, you can see it's being repeated very often. So beautiful. Okay. Yeah, so I think I don't have to say much more about transforming. Another thing that's really useful for like a useful feature of transforming is if you want to get rid of the alpha background, you can just set this to 1 and then turn this comp over background color on, and then this, whatever color you have specified here, is going to be compositioned over the alpha, or instead of the alpha. So now we have a black background. If you want to export it, for example, that's definitely good practice. All right, so let's now look at how to actually connect and composite different things together. So I'm gonna get rid of the alpha by just turning this off again. I like the black color, I mean. Let's say we want to mix these all together. So there's a few options to do that. I can add for example, if I just want to add these together, I could just add an ad and add this to the ad as well. And then we have, like, these two videos just added together. So every pixel of every of both of the images or video files are just gonna be added together. So they're all like RGB, so they're all like in a range between 0 and 1. And let's say a pixel in this operator is 0.3, so like a dark gray, and this is like a 0.6. Then together they're gonna be 0.9. So if you add them together, they're gonna be almost white. So, and there's things like multiplying. So if I multiply these together, now every pixel is going to be just, yeah, multiplied. So it's kind of like image math. You probably know this from Photoshop, if you know Photoshop. And so you can add a lot of these operations manually, or what I usually just do is add a composite top. And the composite top has, I think, two main great features that makes it better for me. One being that I can add more than one input into here. So if you have this bright box there, that means you can, like, as you can see here, it's really like this one slot there, and here it's like this area or field where you can just input as many operators as you want. So I have now set this to multiply as well, just as before. And if I drop that in there, you can see it's the same thing. But the great thing about that as well now here is that I can change this to like difference or something. And these are just different sort of algorithms, you could say, or like formulas to change or like to mix image files together. So you could also change this to all the others here. Just play around with these. Difference is one of my favorites, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to play with that. So let's say I just want to put these over there, not mix them, but just lay this on top of that. And now I can just use an over top, and now something comes into play. If I just drop this down here, you can see seemingly nothing happens. The thing is that this image is just being being put on top of this image, so we can't see it, this image. So here the input order is very important. So if you hover over it, you can see it says source 1 and source 2. Now what you can do is just long click on this and drag it to the other one, and then they're just going to be switched. So now this one is an input 1, or yeah, input 0 and input 1. This is an input 1. So you can also see that, well, here you can't actually see it. Makes sense. I'm gonna get to that back to that in a second. Jeez. Yeah, so whatever you have on top here is gonna be on top on the image as well. What I was just referring to is if I have a composite top now, and I'm doing the same thing, just dropping that in there again, set to multiply. If I change this to over, I have the same problem, obviously, but now we have also this list of inputs here. So let's say I want to add another one here. Now we have 3 inputs, and they're all listed here. So you can delete them here, but you can also use this arrow to put, like, it says transform 1 because it's referring to this. It also says rectangle 1 and it's referring to this. So now I can put this one layer up and this also one layer up, and maybe I want to have that at the top, so I click on it again, and now this is on top of this and on top of this, and you can see that here as well. And here you can't drag them around. That's what you have this for. Alright, so now we have this amazing composition, and I can just add a null here. I have a whole video on what nulls are for, but they're basically kind of like endpoints. So you use them for either if you want to convert something to another family, like operator family, or if you use this display, then you want to have a null, because then you can just add things here and don't have to change what operator is being displayed. Alright, I'm gonna take this softness away from the Pac-Man. Alright, that's probably one of the most amazing artworks I've made so far. Alright, one last thing I'm gonna show you. Obviously we can just we could add another comp here now, like composite, and put that in there, like the ramp in there, and change this to difference, and now we have like this extremely beautiful artwork. And now to make this even better, let's put some text in there. So I can use the text tab to do that. And on the text tab, I also want to change the resolution. So I'm gonna just also take this. I'm just copying the parameter again, pasting that in here. And there it says derivative. Derivative is like the default text, or that's always in there. If you're on the text, go to the text tab, and here on the text you can change the text. Amazing artwork. And you can now go to font, and on the font you can change all the typical things that you want to change about a font. So you can use any kind of font. So you can select from a huge list of fonts. At least it's huge for me. Like anything that's on your PC, though there is not really every single font listed. If you don't find it there, you can click on this plus and then just search for the file and just load that in. It's gonna be replacing this. Yeah. So also you can just make it bold, italic. You can change the font size by points, by pixels, fraction, you know, all these different value sorts. And you can also make this auto fit. So you can say auto fit always, so it always gonna be it's always gonna be snapping to the edges, or just if it's too large. So now if I'm writing amazing artwork 2020, it's gonna be resizing this because it goes a bit too far. All right. You can change the position. Again, I would not do that here, but use a transform. You can change the line spacing if you have several lines. You can align it in the center or not. I'm not gonna make this auto fit, so I can now align it to the left, or you know, all these things. I guess you know them. You can change the color. It's very similar to the circle. So now I'm gonna add a transform. We might want to have that, and I'm gonna add another over here and put that in there, and then change these. All right, so now we have finished our incredibly beautiful artwork, and this is kind of it for the first part of tops.